the question a lot of these firms are asking their clients, how can you actually prepare yourself for the new normal? How can you take some of the lessons that you learned in 2020 and apply it when everything goes back to normal?
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our returning guest is the co-founder and CEO of Relay Financial, which is a digital business banking solution. Yoseph West, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Michael. So excited to be here. And Happy New Year. Happy 2021.
Happy 2021. Well, I think, it's interesting how the whole Happy New Year thing, it was like, yeah, right, we get it. Let's forget 2020 happened. It's just like 2021. Forget about Happy New Year. It's just 2021. It kind of feels like it's been like that.
That is very true. I've gotten way less, Happy New Year's at the beginning of emails this year.
I agree. I
True.
agree. And it's the 1 year. I was joking with someone else recently. It's the first year, I think, in my entire life that I did not make a mistake of writing 2021. I was like full on that. Yeah, it's the new year. We were all really clear that this was, we're putting 2020 behind us.
Nice. I can't say that I was that fortunate or that committed to the new year. I may have made that mistake once or twice where I put 2020.
Okay. It might just be me. Very cool. Well, look, it's been a while. The world has changed. There's been so many things going on. I mean, your organization, Relay Financial, is an organization of change and progress and innovation. But yet we had this progress and change innovation explosion in 2020. Tell us a little bit about how you're doing these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I can give like a 10-second spiel on just what Relay is, and then we can kind of tie into the update.
Yes, please do.
Sweet. So the way to think about Relay, yes, it's a digital bank for small business owners and the advisors they work with. But I think the best way to think about it is like a smart operating account for your business. So you get checking accounts, you get like AP automation. We directly integrate into your accounting system, and you get like approval workflows really easy. You can issue cards to your team members. And the number one thing that people tell us about what they love about Relay is that it just increases financial visibility for their business. And in the advisor's case, it increases financial visibility for them to be able to actually have access to information. So that's kind of what Relay does. I think when we look back on this last year, I mean, I know we all have a strange sense of time now, right? It's kind of been a long year and gone by in an instant at the same time. But there's been a lot of learnings, right? Like we're seeing folks adopt new technology in ways they've never done before. For us, we were lucky enough that COVID was actually really good for our business. Because people didn't want to go into bank branches. They wanted to be able to sign up for a bank account online. They wanted to be able to collaborate remotely, right? Which, a modern bank like Relay enables through like user permissions. And most importantly of all, like small business owners went through like a cash flow crisis this year and are still going through it. And so being able to increase financial visibility was critical, and to have real-time, like up-to-date financials was an absolute necessity because of the PPP loans and everything that people were applying for this year. So we just saw a huge shift towards actually adopting digital banking as part of the core accounting stack, alongside your QuickBooks Online account, your Xero account, your HubDoc, your Gusto. It's really cool to see people standardizing on banking because it's actually such a growth enabler for your practice.
Absolutely. And there's a good old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, there was definitely necessary change. And so it's been what's great is that what was needed was already there and waiting. It's just it needed the focus and care and attention for people to go, yeah, this is a better way. Now it's essential that we look at it, and that's been great if you're a business, and your business brings a lot of great benefits that will be long-lasting to small businesses going forward.
Absolutely. I think one thing I'll definitely take from kind of the past 12 months is just when I see a new technology that I might not be familiar with, I'm going to be more likely to try it. To be honest, like I can think of Best Buy's Click and Collect. My dad mentioned this to me over the holidays. He was like, yeah, I ordered it online and then I just went to the store and they had it ready for me and it was easy. And I was like, Dad, that's been there for like 10 years. How did you not know? But I think that to some extent that applies to all of us, right? Sometimes we have blinders about these solutions that are just sitting there. They're already waiting for us, as you said. And so I know that one of my resolutions this year is to just try more stuff and see what works.
Absolutely. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's one of those things, human condition, I believe, where we just keep doing the same things that we do, even though we kind of know that there might even be a better way. But until you try it, you'll never know. I mean, it's remarkable what's available out there, but yet it all comes down to time. What are you going to focus on? The pandemic definitely has had all of us looking at ways to better interact with each other, virtual ways of dealing with each other and transacting with each other. So Relay was positioned very well, I think, for what has happened.
Absolutely.
So cool. Now, you also have been working on a project that really is the reason why we wanted to talk today, which is such a cool project that you undertook for our audience. I mean, talking about growth in 2021 and getting kind of a consensus on what are the rest of the leaders in this industry doing in 2021 around growth. Tell us a little bit about that project, how it got started, and we'll get into it.
Sounds great. So the project was basically like, growth in 2021, like what is the playbook from cloud accounting leaders? And so what are the genesis for this idea was, I think as we all look back on 2020, it was a bit of a year of learning, right? All of our lives were kind of distilled down to kind of the basics. And I think it forced us all to kind of reflect on, hey, what do I really like about my life and what could be better? And so as we thought about that kind of like emotional string that we're kind of all feeling and going through, we thought like, of course, how does this apply to accounting and bookkeeping? How do we take that and move it across? And so what we did was we reached out to so many wonderful folks who were so generous to give us their time and their thoughts to ask them, hey, like what were your key learnings this past year? How did you evolve? And we used that as a springboard to talk about how they're looking at this coming year. And there were so many great learnings from those conversations. And so that's what has kind of crystallized into this playbook.
It's very cool. And I mean, it's one of those things that I think are, if there was ever a time that people are wondering what others are doing and how are they dealing with it, I think it's now. And so summarize what were some of the big things people were talking about, and maybe actually let's talk about what people were concerned about. What were some of the things that they were concerned about 2020?
So
2021. Oh my goodness! Here I am making.
Oh, concerned about going to 2021. Okay. That's so funny.
I can write it right, but I can't say it right.
Yeah, like let's talk about that. But let's do the 2020 because I think the theme of this past year has been like resilience, right? You look at how quickly society has changed and adapted to kind of, and I hate this phrase, so apologies to everyone, adapted to the new normal. I think it's amazing, but the themes that, came out from these firms about 2020 was how much their team stepped up and how much people really leaned in to make it through this kind of crisis period. And I think to your original, perhaps mistakenly stated question, I think the fear they had in going into 2020 with everything that was happening was that, perhaps with the additional load of these PPP loans and this additional work and tax season being delayed, like all these things that were really hitting the accounting and bookkeeping community, were their teams going to be able to step up? And resoundingly, for these folks that we spoke to, and really, like, you can download the playbook, you can see all their wonderful, beautiful faces, and they were so kind to share all of these wonderful thoughts. That's why I'm able to hopefully sound smart on this podcast. They just saw how much their team stepped up. And I think going into 2021, there definitely are a few themes that they are doubling down on. And we can go through, the kind of the different buckets. But I think, on the note of resilience, people appreciated their team a material amount more because of the work that was done in 2020, and are now really doubling down on the team members that they have, and trying to upskill them in a way that perhaps they wouldn't have done before, right? I think we can all be guilty of perhaps not seeing everyone's magic, but just really, really investing in their people and their process and obviously their technology. But I think that was one core theme.
Is really people. And so let's jump into, looking at the document now. I see that people was the big one. It's like, wow, we need people, and we got to upskill them. We got to invest in them. We've got to get the best possible ones to help us. It's fantastic and great advice. And then I see clients. Clients' needs are changing. Maybe go through a little bit of that. That was really interesting as well.
Absolutely. So, coming back to kind of what we talked about earlier, right? Like, there was this acceleration in cloud adoption this year, right? E-commerce, I think, moved ahead like 5 or 10 years in terms of adoption in the course of like 3 months, which is amazing. And so when these firms kind of looked at their clients, there was definitely a segment of their client base which perhaps hadn't adopted cloud technology in the way that they needed to, and hadn't standardized in the way they needed to. And so going into this year, one of the concerns that they have is that there are certain clients who might be at risk of actually falling behind technologically. And their goal is to effectively help these business owners move to kind of the future, or really the present now, right? Like, cloud accounting technology is now. It's not a when. And I think that's definitely a huge concern for them. And I think it's kind of a, hey, can I help this client move forward so that we can be efficient and I can deliver them the value that they need? Or is this a client that actually might not be the right fit? And then there's, I think, as we talk to firms throughout the pandemic, and I guess we're still in it, right? But I think at the beginnings of it, those first few months, people would often describe themselves as like a financial therapist for their clients, where they're really trying to like be there for their clients, not only to just say, hey, here's your cash position, here's what's happening, here's how we can get through this, but also just kind of being a shoulder they can lean on. And that theme kind of comes through on like 2021 around, us all really wanting to get back to normal, right? I think, I get messages from friends all the time, and I send them where it's like, God, I just want to like go to a restaurant and see people and eat a meal, right? Like, that would be luxurious. I don't care where, like, just let me go. And, I think there's a notion for business owners as well that they want to like get back to normal. And a lot of the firms were like, yeah, we're trying to make sure we're messaging to our clients that like, hey, we are going to get back to normal, but let's treat this as like a marathon as opposed to a sprint. And then I would say the last bullet on the client front was really that coming back to that idea of like, consumer behavior is changing. And this impacts like every type of business. It impacted Relay this year, right? More people adopted effectively like cloud banking or virtual banking. And so the question a lot of these firms are asking their clients, how can you actually prepare yourself for the new normal? How can you take some of the lessons that you learned in 2020 and apply it when everything goes back to normal? So a lot of like, I'm going to call out Chris Maxey their firm, they basically focus on restaurants and hospitality. And so perhaps, arguably the most impacted by the pandemic and, lockdowns and stuff like that. And a lot of these business owners were just super creative. And they found ways to do kind of like pop-ups around new menus, or kind of almost like a flash sale for food, where they're like, hey, we have this new menu for tonight. Come down. They're messaging people on Instagram, they're texting people, whatever they're doing, and creating excitement around what their business is and what their service is. And you can imagine how that's just a great idea, right? Pandemic or not, that's an amazing idea. And so a lot of firms are encouraging their clients to think about, hey, how do I take some of those great creative ideas that I, applied in the pandemic and continue to do them to maximize my revenue going into 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because, people were doing things the way they've always done them. And you could say it's a form of complacency, right? We're trying to grow our business, but if you think of average business, they do the things they know work. Pandemic has thrown a curveball that people have had to really think differently. Those new strategies, new abilities, new skills that people have learned for their business. I mean, it's going to bring abundant opportunity in the future to continue to do those things and be innovative. I mean, at some point, I'm sure we'll go back to being complacent again. But it's like this has a potential for those that have really adapted to this. Those new adaptations are going to bring great benefit to their business going down the road.
Absolutely. Like, I think on the notion of like adaptations and just trying to get better, the theme we heard time and again was documentation. Like I would say, invest in your people and help them, upskill and all this stuff was like number one. But number two was like definitely documentation and standardization. So getting your team all on the same page, working through, to make sure that everyone is doing a certain task the same way to drive as much efficiency as you can. It's almost like an equivalent to saying, hey, I'm going to standardize entirely on QuickBooks Online, or I'm going to standardize entirely on Xero. There are efficiency gains by like actually standardizing process. It's super important.
It really is. And we know that. I mean, pure bookkeeping, that is what it's all about, is building systems. And Michael Gerber, who wrote eMyth, the initial eMyth and now eMyth Bookkeeper, solve a problem with a system. And if you do that enough times, eventually you get to freedom. And what we like to call that at Pure Bookkeeping is pure freedom. I mean, we get into business not to work harder, not to make less money, not to pull our more hair out. We get into business to have freedom, make more money, have the benefits of being a business owner. And yet often it's not the case. So not only will systems and process improve your firm overall, but think of what it does for the culture of your organization. And that number one asset, as you say, and as your thought leaders in the accounting industry have said, is people's your number one asset. So make sure that number one asset is tooled up to be able to get the work done, get it done right, and know when it's been done right. So that's fantastic. Any other insights or thoughts that came around the systems and process from these thought leaders?
Absolutely. So just a quick note, like we're obviously talking really high level about some of these learnings, but the actual PDF is about, I think it's like 25, 30 pages of great insights from kind of the leading minds in cloud accounting. So I think there will be a link in the show notes, so you can go and download it.
We're going to have this document, a link to the document, but as well, the document's got links to other resources, which is really great. I mean, I love the document from that perspective. It's kind of like, hey, if you're going to focus on something in 2021, here's 3 things you could focus on. Here's why you want to focus on them. And here's a bunch of resources to help you think deeper about that. So it's really well put together as well. So well done on that.
Nice. I mean, I deserve zero credit. So that's all I will pass on. I pass on the thank you to the team. So I think the other piece that I would mention is, we're seeing this shift towards, cloud adoption. And I think, Michael, in the time that you and I have been in this industry, it's gone from, cloud being an if to a when to a now, right? And there are many benefits to like automation and technology. And then there's also, you have to balance the convenience you're delivering for your clients with security and information security. And so, one of the core areas where we see a lot of risk, a lot of firms take perhaps more liability on than they should, but just because it's the only way to get the job done, is people holding on to their clients' bank logins. We see this very consistently because it's hard to get access to the financial data you need to do the bookkeeping. Getting a read-only card from a bank often is not possible or is a total pain. And so what we're seeing is more firms saying, hey, this is actually no longer a liability we want to take on. And we want to use a solution like Relay to solve this for us, where we get a partner portal, where we get a direct bank feed into the accounting system, so it's super reliable. And we actually get you get the benefit of like enriched data, where you can see actually check deposits and the data in the transactions, as opposed to getting, check 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're definitely seeing more of a shift towards wanting to balance not only delivering convenience, which I think is everyone has been trying to get to, but I think we're getting closer and closer, but also with security of information. And we're seeing that being a big focus for these firms.
Very interesting, and makes no surprises here. I mean, you've heard this be a challenge for a long, long time, and yet now it's become a necessity. And so it's great that your firm's taking that on. I mean, it's one of my complaints, just the ease of use. And then sometimes you think of big banks, right? They move slow, they make so much money, and yet they deliver, when you really look at it deeply, such a poor, antiquated service delivery in terms of what we get back and the costs that small businesses need to incur because banks haven't done their job in innovation and doing the work that they should be doing. Better bookkeeping, tools, technology leads to better efficiency for not only the bookkeepers and accountants that work with that information, but also the business owner has to pay people to go in and get that information. We don't often think about that, the cost, because the bank hasn't done it right, the costs that we're now put. So they're charging us fees, but then they're also making us do extra work. So don't get me started, but that's why I love Relay and what you guys are doing.
That's awesome. I was going to say, let's get started.
Oh, there you go. I love that. Throw some fire, some flames, or some fuel on that fire.
Yeah, it's like it takes on average a business owner 7 days to open a bank account. It's ridiculous. They pay $200 a year in fees plus on average. They get very, not great customer service. Actually accessing their own data, like their own data that they need to understand their business, is hard. Bank feeds break all the time. Like just giving someone else user level access is like a read-only access is basically impossible in 90% of cases. And yeah, it's time for like banks to be growth enablers. Like, why aren't they helping small business owners? And it's an incentive problem. There are lots of great people at the banks. It's just not a priority for them.
That's right. And it's one of the things in Canada is giving people like our bookkeeping firm to give them, get documents. We used, another company you're familiar with, HubDoc. We get the HubDoc, but sometimes there might be one document that gets missed or whatever the case may be. And to solve it, it's like, we got to get together, we got to meet, what's happened, call support, do this, chickadee chick. And then, if it comes down to, they need to get access. If it's not going to be me, then someone needs to have access. But there's just no way for me to give like a partner portal access where I could say, well, the bookkeeper can go in there, they can get all of, see everything, but they can't, take all my money, right? Take all the money out or do it, because there's so much fraud that happens out there. And this is a result of that. Who's bearing that liability? The small business owner and the bookkeeping firms. And so it's one of the things that just happened recently for me. And it's like a bit of a frustration, a bit of like, come on, really? You make all this money, you can't figure this out? Right? So, I'm not blaming anybody at the bank. I'm blaming it's big corporation, slow. that is not thinking nimbly like small business owners. And it used to be that we'd sit here and we'd go, well, what are we going to do about it, right? Canadians have been called, angry and complacent, right? Most angry and complacent people. It's like, well, what are we going to do? It's the banks. How are we going to defeat the banks? They're the banks. Well, now we can do something about it. It's called vote with your dollars, because you vote with your dollars when you say, well, where am I going to invest my time and energy and money? I'm going to go work with companies like Relay that are actually doing it the way it should be done and jumping ahead of the banks. And that's why I'm like, you know what? Go for it, Relay. You should be, and it should. And let's see if we can make those banks cater to our needs by simply voting with our dollars. So that's a rally call to everybody out there that's listening, that's working with banks that are antiquated. Go work with a bank that isn't like Relay. And so anyways, there you go. You lit the fire, Joseph. What are we going to do?
I was just going to say, I couldn't have said it better myself. Right? It's like antiquated systems. It's hard for them to deliver like a truly modern software experience on banking.
Yeah. And they've got the resources to be able to do it, but they're not doing it. And so what's going to change that is competition. And so you're that competition. And I mean, you partner with banks and all that good stuff, but it's time now to do that. So, I mean, we've kind of went on a little bit of a riff there from the purpose of this call, but I think it comes back to small business owners are the clients of our listeners, and our listener are small business owners as well. And so one of the key things that I have read in this document is it's never been more important to embrace technology. And maybe we can give some more thoughts and highlights around that from some of the thought leaders that chimed in on that. But embracing technology and embracing the inner workings and foundation of your firms from a systems and process and efficiency. There's all sorts of technology. There's all sorts of ways to do this to make your firms run even more efficiently. And then that you can, when you do it yourself, like if our listener went and figured out Relay, I guarantee you, because we've had a lot of listeners come to me and say, yeah, I used Relay and oh my goodness, it was just so great and so easy, and it's doing all these great things. I mean, you guys are just getting started as well, but they're just loving it, right? And so now that they figured that out, what are they going to do? They're going to take that to their clients. They're going to say, look, here's how it works. I did this. It's amazing, because that's how it works. That's how things get shared. You go to a movie and it's amazing. You share that with your friends and family and the people you interact with. Well, when you do it and you embrace that technology, you get a lift in your business, and then you're able to take that lift, that knowledge, that experience, and be an advisor to your clients around how to bring efficiency and process and system to their business. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Absolutely. And just as we were kind of like going through the the PDF, the growth in 2021, I just also want to call out a couple of our partners on this.
Let's do it.
So the wonderful folks at Carbon. Carbon is a great work management software for accounting firms. So as you're on that note of like process and technology, these are the folks to work with in terms of like how you break that out and how you run a more efficient team. And I couldn't speak more highly of Ian and the team there. And then, of course, Practice Ignition, which effectively makes it easy to go from like proposal to actually getting paid in like one place. We see a lot of firms using Relay and Practice Ignition together. And so they're, Ian and Ryan from Carbon and Practice Ignition, respectively, were such amazing partners on this playbook. And so it's really the combination of these three teams coming together and the wonderful insights from cloud accounting leaders that enabled us to deliver this for the community.
Wonderful. Great firms, partners of ours, Carbon, Practice Ignition, loved by many of our community. And so there's some great tools and technology there that can bring some of the things that we've talked about. I also want to shout out these people who chimed in on your document. I mean, often we talk about all this content and, we forget about the thought and experience and time and energy that goes into figuring out these solutions and figuring out the way. I mean, you've got a good handful here, probably a dozen, about a dozen thought leaders that contributed to this document. These are accounting professionals in the United States. I mean, they're just so giving. And I just love that. Whenever I have guests on that are part of this community, they share the wins, they share the losses, they share the secrets. That's such a valuable thing to do. And I think we don't thank those people enough. So everyone that contributed on this document, thank you. It took time not only to figure out the solution, but to also share it, give away their secrets and their intellectual property. Such a great thing, such a great service. So thanks to them as well. And I won't list them all, but you can find out about them and maybe even thank them personally out there when you get the document. Joseph, this has been fantastic. Do you have any parting thoughts or key points that you'd like to make before we close this down? The time went so quick. There's just so much to talk about and such an exciting topic as well. I mean, you got the fire started here, Joseph. I could go on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. I guess a couple quick hits. One, download the PDF. I think we just touched the surface of a lot of the great insights that so many of these wonderful cloud accounting leaders shared with us. So do hit that link in the show notes. And then I think, the goal of the playbook was to kind of distill some of the lessons for 2020 and see how they're getting applied in 2021. To help firms grow faster, do more, be more efficient. Perhaps it's just they want to be more efficient so they can spend time with their kids, or they want to build a better firm, whatever it is. And so, I think the couple quick hits on this, right? We're like, invest in your people, document the heck out of your process, standardize, and try new technology and help your clients along on the journey. Because there's just so much good and so much opportunity, no matter where you are on that cloud journey.
Absolutely love it. It's fantastic, and thank you for it. This has been a fantastic opportunity to learn more about what you've been up to, and as well what a dozen or so other thought leaders have been up to. So thanks for being on the show, Joseph.
Thanks so much, Michael.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.